Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Chag Sukkot Sameach. This is my second video for the day. This is the second day of Sukkot now that it's evening. You might be able to make out some part of my face. I don't know, maybe all you see is darkness, depending on the lighting of this. Anyway, I was listening to, of all things, old broadcasts of Art Bell's Coast to Coast. A Xingyi buddy of mine, who is a fellow Black Sash instructor under the same teacher, and who also was himself one of my first really deeply knowledgeable teachers in Xingyi. I had studied it with other people before, but he was the first guy that really that I really dug in deep with Xingyi with. Anyway, he really sort of religiously listens to Coast to Coast. I mean, not religiously in the sense of believing it all. He just gets into listening to it. He tapes them and all of that. And when we go and see our Shifu, we usually listen to old tapes of it. Usually ones that end up turning out interesting, sounding cool, and having a good topic, a good guest. With that said, I think that 90% of the shows are complete bunk, and probably about that same percentage of callers are schizophrenic to some degree, or scared of their shadow. Or I just don't think there's a lot of credible information on there. But I do think that they address credible topics, and let's say they have a show about UFO stuff. They may have 90% crap, but then you might have 10% really kind of interesting stuff. So anyway, that's the story behind taped, Coast to Coast, Art Bell, George Norrie shows. Anyway, so I'm listening to this old one, and actually there were two different ones by Glenn Kimball. Glenn Kimball in the first one. I guess it was Art, maybe it was George. One of them was, they sound a lot alike to me, I don't know. But they, a guy was interviewing him, and he, of course, was saying that he was a PhD, and then it came out in the second one that he had completed all the coursework but never did his dissertation. And that's fine. I mean, it's hard work. That's where I'm at. It's, I'm not a PhD. I'm, working on the coursework and preliminarily working on the components of what will become the dissertation, God willing. Anyway, so it turns out in the second one, a lady's interviewing him, and she specifies what his BA and then his master's and then what his PhD, what all of that was in, and it was all communications. This is a really important distinction to make, because a lot of times you'll hear people weighing in as experts on stuff, and they'll have degrees in completely irrelevant topics. Somebody had a PhD in English, but then they wanted to weigh in on Middle Eastern politics and religion and stuff like that. Like Edward Said, in fact, one of my numerous problems with him. He had absolutely no, not just credentials, but no real background in studying the topics which he wrote about, which led him to completely neglect certain scholars in fields that he was criticizing. In his 1977 book, Orientalism, he completely neglected Ignaz Goldziher, who disproved his entire thesis. That's something if he would have taken any coursework on the subjects he was writing about even, he would have been aware of the founder of basically Islamic studies, scholarly endeavor of Islamic studies. So that this sort of thing's pretty important. So anyway, Glenn Kimball, he has all these degrees in communications. Fine. What prompted me to make this little short discussion is that he's weighing in on all this stuff. Hidden history, secret history, everything, sort of Da Vinci Code type history. There is certainly a lot of history that is hidden. A lot of it just simply by the darkness of our own ignorance. We don't know everything, and we often think that we do. And fields of study usually come up with a working model of whatever it is, whether it's a scientific model or a model of how we view history, and then they take that and they run with it. And so the tribes in the Amazon rainforest, of course, until clear cutting and all of that, they had never spoken to outside societies. So we're told maybe that's true. Maybe there's just something mystical about how they developed bows and arrows, and how they have the sort of same appearance as various non-African indigenous peoples throughout the Americas, and but it doesn't really explain how the ancient Olmec civilizations and the big stoneheads are very much African, sub-Saharan in appearance, and we have these Native American-looking peoples found throughout the Americas instead of those sub-Saharan African-looking peoples. So there's stuff that we don't know. We don't know what happened between the Olmecs and then these later people. We don't know how all these people got the bow and arrow. These aren't even questions that people are really asking. And then sometimes people will come up with a working theory, like the pyramids being tombs for the pharaohs, for these megalomaniac pharaohs, and yet we don't find any bodies buried in the pyramids. Something that may sound completely insane to you, but look it up. Sure enough, you'll find this surprising truth to be well documented, even though it's often neglected in any scholarship on the subject, because the working model of the pyramids being tombs to megalomaniac pharaohs is at least a theory. Humans don't like to say, I don't know. I don't know what the pyramids exactly were. Here are some ideas, but we don't know. We can't prove it. I don't know how all these tribes all over the world have the bow and arrow, and yet we thought that they had no contact with any outside civilization. When there is an I don't know, somebody's going to come along and they're going to tell you they do know. Now, maybe they do know, or maybe they're completely full of shit, and chances are you're not going to know the difference unless that's your field of expertise or study. And when they come along and it's not their field of study, but they use their credentials in an unrelated field of expertise to credential themselves and use that to weigh their opinion on the matter, it's a form of hustling. It's a form of disingenuity. It's a form of charlatanry in a way, in my own opinion, because you know well enough of your degrees in communications that it's not in anything religious oriented or anthropologically oriented, or nothing to do with archaeology. Any one of those things might give you some weight to your point of view on this. So this guy, Glenn Kimball, he first of all, he said he has studied at least half of the materials, the texts on Jesus, the hidden books on Jesus, And then he proceeds to say that in total there are 5 million of these. 5 million. So he's saying he's read half of those, which of course is ridiculous. But then he proceeds to, in fact, this is something that my last video was talking about, is how people take sources at face value. They don't apply scholarly methodologies of historical criticism to them. They just simply say, if this source says it, then that must be documenting something that really happened, rather than documenting the mythologies of a people, or an emerging religious identity, or a socio-political phenomenon, or a socio-religious, religio-political phenomenon. They don't ask those questions. They don't apply methods of so-called higher criticism or historical criticism, methods like the criterion of embarrassment, the criterion of double dissimilarity, all of these things which I've addressed in other videos, particularly dealing with the historical Jesus and the historical Muhammad, and playing off of Rabbi Boteach's Kosher Jesus book. I had a series of some videos that were, I guess, musings about the notion of the historical Jesus as a kosher Jesus. That is a non-Christian Jesus, a non-theologically Christian Jesus, and a pre-Christian Jesus, of course. Anyway, so Glenn Kimball, he's got all this. He's amalgamated all these stories together, and then he's, of course, amalgamated it with another popular idea, which is that the Jesus dynasty disseminated throughout European aristocracy. And where do we first see these myths, the Merovingian and all this nonsense, all these myths coming from the Sinclairs and all that crap? We see it coming straight from the European aristocracy, who were Christian. Wow, what a surprise. So you have these people, they've got somewhat heterodox views, and yet they're coming from a Christian milieu. They're the aristocracy, which has always believed in a divine right to rule, which really grows out of the notion of a divine right to rule. And what have they done? They've just composed a new myth of why they have the divine right to rule. Of course, Kimball, he goes into this whole garbage about the British royal family being descendants of Jesus, and King Arthur being like the great-great-grandson. I mean, just all this stuff. Of course, there's no evidence for there ever being a King Arthur or anything like that. This is just all utter conjecture. But he's copied and pasted it all together, and he made himself a little hit book that people gobbled up, like the Da Vinci Code. Now I'm not gonna bag on the Da Vinci Code, because it's a novel, and any novel is going to have the right to storytell. That's what it does. So that's not so much the problem, but the Holy Blood, Holy Grail book that it was based on is really more of the problem. That's actually the culprit in terms of what was concocting this fantasy, and they were drawing on other sources too, but they were not simply using this exaggerated position of Eurocentrism and heterodox Christian milieu, but they were also not just simply trying to defend Freemasonry, which I don't have any beef with, but they were trying to rekindle interest in Freemasonry in the 90s, when it was pretty much just like this. I can't remember from Happy Days what Richie's dad, he was a member of some secret society, and it was just kind of this goofy thing, So he was trying to rekindle. There were a number of books out about that, and some of them were pretty cool. The Serious Mystery was one of them by Robert Temple, and he claims to not have been a Freemason, which probably isn't true. He probably was, because then he goes on about how the Freemasons approached him and told him, you've got to join us to find out the secrets of, you've hit on it, but for us to tell you anything more, you've got to join us. And to me, that it seems like a genius sales pitch. And I think that's what they were doing, and I don't fault them for that either. That's their shtick. That's what they want to do. They're a secret society. That's what secret societies do. They promote their secrets and all of that. I'm much more into using scholarly methods to uncover secrets, because I can't simply trust what a society, what a religion, what a sect, what anything is going to tell me about certain secrets, because even if they are well-intended and they don't think they're lying to me, by filtering the information through their own brains and through those of the people who came before them for generations, they're inadvertently lying to me perspectively, and that's fine too. That's life. That's how information gets transmitted, and that's why we have to have scholarly methods of historical criticism to unearth things. So, I guess I decided to tape this on my way to the gym to lament the fact that it'd be so easy to just make $1 million and write some garbage books about how I've pieced together from these early sources all of these hidden truths about Jesus, and how I know what he did when he was a kid. I know what he did last summer, but it's not honest, and I really can't bring myself to do that. I can't bring myself to play this game of lower criticism, where we just copy and paste the sources together and imagine that creating such a composite Frankenstein picture of history is going to actually bring life to a true, authentic history. It's simply not the case. And for anybody listening to this, which will consist of the folks on my Facebook and or YouTube viewers, I just really say it as a word of warning and cautionary advice. There's a lot of garbage out there, and usually the garbage is sensationalistic and claims to have all of the answers perfectly assembled from this jigsaw puzzle of history. Now, anytime somebody's going to talk about things having happened certainly in exactly this manner, and they're not going to tell you how they deduce that, but instead they're going to just tell you from a source, then you need to, let's say, buyer beware. Because you're buying into what they're selling. You're investing your belief into their ideas, and you're propagating those ideas. You're propagating those memes in the sociological sense of the word, long before the term became misapplied to internet JPEGs. Funny though many of them might be. Anyway, if a person's speaking in probabilities, this probably happened because this is dissimilar from the prevailing view of the religious group that recorded it at the time, or, speaking in logical probabilities using scholarly methods like that, then listen up, because that person knows what they're talking about, and they've probably studied, and they might just have some actually relevant credentials as well.